Here's the moment of truth. What is going on YouTube? It's your boy, Too Breezy. Today, I got my 2018 GSX-R1000R. Today I'm going to be changing a couple of sensors. The crankshaft position sensor and the cam position sensor. This bike, shout out to the 2016 1000. This bike has not ran, it starts, but it doesn't run. And the only way to get it to run is by holding the throttle open. So that it stays at a high enough RPM that it doesn't stall out. Today I'm going to change out these two sensors, which the check engine light, which I'll show you right here. The check engine light is on. The codes are those two sensors, so I'm thinking that that's going to be the issue, or at least I'm hoping. And I'm gonna go through it with everybody and see if this solves my issue on this bad boy. Hopefully it does, and then we can get this thing back on the road. So first things first, we're going to want to disconnect the battery. That way we don't have anything electrical or any electric circuits running through the bike while we're trying to replace two sensors. That would be kind of a dummy proof situation. But we're going to go ahead and start off by taking these panels off so we can get to the bolts on the seat. And then once we get into there, we can disconnect the battery. Once we disconnect the battery, we can come around here, take this fairing piece off, and then the sensor that we're trying to get to is actually the whole stator, what you would call, I guess, the stator, the magnet or alternator for a bike, you would say in dummy terms. For these bikes, the sensor is actually built in with everything, so you can't get just the sensor. It is an entire thing. And then once we change that out, we're gonna have to take off the tank. Once we get under the airbox, then we can actually get to the crank or cam position sensor, and that's gonna be at the very top of the valve cover, and then it just sits right there. It's just one screw and it pops right off. So enough talking, let me get this seat and pieces taken off, and then we'll get this going. So after I was able to get the fairing pieces on the seat off, I went ahead and disconnected the battery on both sides. I'm not going to take it out because it's disconnected, and I pushed all the connectors away so that's not going to touch it accidentally. I just have to work on getting this fairing piece off, which isn't very hard. It's just a couple of bolts and then just some pull tabs. And then once I go ahead and get that off, I can start unscrewing the stator cover and start unscrewing the actual stator or signal generator from the inside of the cover itself. Alright, so I went ahead and took off that side fairing piece, and if you'll take a look, here is the crank position sensor that is right there, and it goes right into the stator. And then there's another one that just leads over to this cluster of connectors. And so we got to take this whole thing off. Now there will be a tiny bit of oil that leaks out of the bottom, so just have a rag if you are having a similar issue. Not a lot of oil is going to come out, but you know, you might have some residual, so just make sure you have that covered. Go ahead and take all these bolts off and then pull this cover off. Alright, so I went ahead and took this cover off. Just be aware that it is magnetic, so if you are trying to do a similar thing where you're just trying to take it off in general just to take a look at it, it is magnetic, so make sure you don't pinch your fingers in here when you're trying to put it back on, because it will snap in. There are dowel pins that hold it in place, but like I said, you're not really going to see too much oil. You know, it's just residual. Like I said, you can see in there's the pistons or the rods. But here's the new sensor that we are replacing. We got to take off these 3 bolts, and then we're gonna have to take off this gasket and then pull that out, and then just gonna have to put in the new one, slap that back together, and throw it back on. So I went ahead and just replaced the stator out, put the new bolts in. I just got to get some seal and then just throw some RDB on there and then throw it back on the bike. Alright, so now I've put everything back together, buttoned everything up, reconnected the connections. Now I'm going to go ahead and work on the cam position sensor and start by taking off this tank. So I went ahead and took the gas tank off right there. Just make sure, if you're taking the gas tank off, make sure to put like a cloth or something underneath this line, because it does tend to just strip a little bit of excess fuel. Now I'm gonna have to take off this air box, so I'm gonna go ahead and go around and unscrew all these screws and then these two, and then just pull this off. And then once I get the full air box off, there's a couple more screws like in here, and then once I get all that stuff off and the stacks, then I can get to the cam position sensor. Alright, so I went ahead and undid all the bolts for the air box. You can take it all the way off. I don't really care to, because the sensor's right there. But I'm gonna go ahead and unscrew that sensor and replace it with our new one right here. And then once we go ahead and put this new sensor on, we're gonna button this back up, and then we're gonna put the basics back on, just like the tank, the battery, and then we're gonna try and start it up and see if hopefully these sensors fix the issue. So I went ahead and buttoned everything up, put the gas tank back on, reconnected it. So now all I have left to do is reconnect the battery, and then hopefully, like I said, we're gonna turn it on and hopefully we are all good. So now that I have the battery connected, it's time to see if this bike starts. Alright, here's the moment of truth. So unfortunately, that still didn't solve our little issue with the check engine light. It is a bummer, but we're gonna keep, trying to figure it out. These bikes do tend to have a lot of electrical issues, but hopefully one day we can see this beauty on the road. But that's gonna do it for me, guys. Hope you enjoyed watching the video. I know it's a little bit of a bummer on my end. We're gonna keep going. Hopefully one day, like I said, we can get this thing out there. This thing runs fine, whatever. It's older, it's a little bit beat up, but it's older. But thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time. Peace.